Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Episode Club. Today we're going to talk about what was Westworld Season 1. And I've got two people who I know that have been doing Westworld content for a long time. So, whoever wants to introduce themselves can do so now, even though I bet you all know who they are at this point.
Typical Canadian fashion, will not take the lead and tell people to introduce themselves. She cannot be rude. She's sorry, everybody. No, thank you for having me on, Southside. I'm excited to figure out what the hell Westworld is. I don't know. But you know what? I'm going to make content anyway. And this is what we're going to get into. I'm Johnny B. Crazy from House of the Conqueror. And yeah, I'm into Westworld a little bit. I think Justin knows it all.
You're not
because
on that
he's the
for sure.
man.
You just got cut. No, that's the business model for content. I don't really watch about my content. No, I'm Justin Thomas from TopShelf Fandom. I'm more than happy to be here on the Episode Club with Mackenzie L. Burns. Really excited for Westworld, people. Shout out to OTDA in the chat, the omniscient moderator,
the one true D.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Katrin? Apparently human. Sorry, let me get it right. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think she's human.
I don't know.
The fact that she brought it up makes it suspicious. It's like,
yeah.
I'm apparently, but it's fitting for the conversation of Westworld. They're apparently human, but they're not actually. So maybe Katrin is a host after all, the offspring of Dolores. Anyway, we also have Erin from Braavosi Broadcast, or Fake Aria, or Faye Fire is also her other channel.
Pick one and stick with it.
Pick one, Erin. Anyway, yes. So, as we all know, Westworld comes back on Sunday. So, in preparation for that, in preparation for streams Wednesday nights at 8:30, we decided, let's talk about Westworld Season 1. Like DA put, one of the greatest series ever put on television was Westworld Season 1. And it's like, very much so. So, what do you think about that statement before we jump into the
Stands
first
alone
question?
as a masterpiece. Booka Shah. I don't know what that means.
For how ambitious it was and how broad the themes are, it is, I used to say one of the, I am now upon further rewatch and research, I am just convinced that there's nothing yet, at least, that is the single best season of television to ever be aired on television. Hands down. So.
Makes you think more than any television show, movie, arguably books. It's really up there with some fantastic literature that lets you delve into the nature of consciousness and what it means to be human. And all of these questions that we're going to get into, because Mackenzie's got some really good questions for us.
Yes,
I'm excited.
And we also have Peter Griffin, who says, well, hello from the South Pole, upside down text. And Forrest Blur, as well as Danny McKay. Finger guns for Danny McKay. Anyway, we have, so the first question that I posed these two before the stream was, Bernard's first questions for Dolores are, have you ever questioned the nature of your reality, and what do you think of your world? These two questions provide us early on with how different the show is going to be within about the first 15 minutes. When you started your journey into the world of Westworld, did you question the nature of this reality, and what did you think of this new world? And
it sets the tone right away, right? Because like at first, at first watch, you just assume that they are checking to make sure that the robots haven't become alive. But also it really just allures to the deeper message here about questioning reality, and not just questioning circumstances, but questioning the very validity of what you perceive as what is real and what is not, what is human, what is not, and dives into some philosophical ideas that are just fascinating. Most people, or a lot of people, believe that the ability to question your reality is what makes you a human and what makes you conscious. It goes as far as to be able to question the afterlife, to be able to question a god is, it's like kind of the evidence of absence and stuff like that. So it's if we couldn't question our reality, then we couldn't say that we ourselves are living in a tangible world, that we it's kind of proof of existence. It's interesting.
Yeah, and reality to the person, social constructs actually hit me first with this reality, but that social constructs are almost like an illusion, that, as we'll get into this, and even the Man in Black says it later in season 1, the real world isn't as real as Westworld to him, and it's a game. And that's really, it's very, very disturbing. What would you do if there were no consequences for your actions? And that's the question in my world. And you can kind of go straight to games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and, just watch highlights of the massacre. Digital enemies everywhere. If you scale that up to what we have now, could you do it even in that situation? If you thought, like, these people going into the park think it doesn't matter, they have no idea it's going to have any type of consciousness.
Is he breaking up for you?
Oh yeah,
yeah. You broke up a little bit.
Like an asshole. Well, anyways,
I just want to know how bad it is in the chat. If you guys can let us know, because I can't hear what you're saying, Johnny. If it's just me, that's fine.
No, it's a little bit broken up, but it could be the.
All right, let me try again, because
there you go.
An asshole. But yes. What would you do in the situation if there were no consequences for your actions? Would you still commit evil? Would you think it's evil because these are animate objects without consciousness, so to speak? Or at least that's what you think. Oh, great.
We got better.
You know what?
Yeah, it got better. Yeah, absolutely. What I mean, is it just the consequences of these actions that stop us from committing them? And what does it mean? What is the deeper meaning when we first chance we get without consequences? We strike out and do these. These just we lose all humanity, right? We strike out and do these atrocious deeds, and it's just not. It's a little bit odd, It's being a good person, just holding back from these inner feelings that we want to act out on. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little disturbing. It's like, oh yeah, but I managed not to do this week. It's like, what does it say about us that, we have to like hold back from doing those things? Are we inherently evil and so forth? And like you said about William, he's looking for reality within the park. I love that because he's looking for a sense of reality in the fictional world in which Delos is afraid the host will become aware of isn't real. So it's a skewed looking array is what it's called, reality. Yeah. And it's it's again allegory, the cave, all that. It's very fascinating. It's not just questioning the circumstance, it's questioning the validity of the world itself.
It's going to be interesting to see too if he gets blurred, like reality gets blurred for other characters, because honestly, I don't even think he gave a shit he killed his own daughter. I mean, that big of a devastation for him, at least emotionally, it seemed. Yeah. I don't know.
I think with presenting those philosophical questions in the beginning of a TV show that's about the future and a park that could very much well exist and within the near future is very realistic. And it is those things where you think about, oh, I have to question what's going on. Is this like Black Mirror, where everything is just something that's constructed for me, when for the host, the whole park or the town that the park mostly focuses on is constructed for their version of reality. For the people on the outside, which we don't get to, the outside, that reality is kind of like they say a video game, where it's like we just get to plant ourselves here and get to leave afterwards, which they never one thing that they didn't explore was the process of coming in and then leaving. Like they loosely explain it to you, but you have to go into the lore and the mythology of the show and understand, oh, this is the steps that it takes to get into the park, the steps that it takes after you get out of the park, so you're not go mentally insane. And then we know in season 2, it really explores why the hats were a thing and why the purpose of the whole park was just to understand people, but understand different types of people, which I guess is that nature of that question as well. It's, let's take this world and I'm just going to give you it and we'll see how you react to it, is the biggest question. And I think they presented
a lot of
that as
applications
well.
from blackmail to, well, the ultimate prize, being immortal. I think I'm getting ahead of myself.
And to define what is not human, you have to define what is human. So the series does a wonderful, especially season 1, of mirroring without it seeming contrived or heavy-handed about, every single time they explain away why the hosts are, acting this way or that way. They're like, oh yeah, but they're not really, free, thinking with full self-awareness and consciousness and free will, because it's just this that's programmed into their narrative, and they're just doing it because we programmed this. So it's like, at the same time, it mirrors our social and societal conditioning as well, in the way in which we aren't very different at all. So it does a wonderful job of that. Right away, it's posing bigger questions, not just are they going to uprise and kill everybody. That's always there, and that's nice. That's a nice little tidbit, but that is not at all what the show is hinging on in the first season, at least.
Can I just say, I think Hacks will be in love with you, Peter Griffin. Peter Griffin says, I'm still going with the simulation theory ending, wondering if humans are worth back. Again. What happened there?
You're just completely going host on me.
The hell is going on right now?
I don't know. I can hear you, but it's jarbled, like you're a robot.
Well, I'm gonna jump out and jump back in.
Okay.
Y'all talk about, hey, Justin, well, whatever. Peter Griffin's comment. Damn it.
About simulation theory.
Yeah, well, simulation theory is interesting because, especially when I just recently listened to a very long lecture that I think I understood 30% of it, which is, good because it's quantum physics, about, the hologram world and stuff like that. And how we keep learning about how rays and waves, interact with protons and so forth, like the physical with the visual and stuff. And like how we perceive things. And we could easily be living look at how many times throughout this, our known history, we can look back now and say they thought they knew this, whether it was where the Earth was in orbit or so forth, where the sun was, if we were to we look now and be like, oh, we used to think that way. That could very easily be the case, like that this is not a physical world in the sense of how we depict it as in our reality. The nature of our reality can be skewed, especially if you look at it in the bigger scope of time. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah. It could be, but if it was a hologram or if it was a simulation, it wouldn't change what's happening at this point.
If y'all can hear me, I just have a theory for season 3 that hit me really quick. Eden is supposed to, virtual Eden is supposed to come back into play, I think. If it does, I think that's where they could house all of what they have of humanity's consciousness. This is a way to take out humanity physically, but also have some kind of empathy for the creatures that they're destroying. So some kind of backup. And this goes back to the test with the Man in Black to see if maybe they could bring humanity back. I don't know. Just something that hit me really quick. You can't, well, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we can hear you.
I hate StreamYard.
I know. I'm going to switch it up. I just made this last minute. Anyway, and the show also presents why did they pick this is a bit broader question for broader for the other seasons as well. But why did they pick the parks that they did? Is an interesting segue to look at because it goes, well, main parks that they show, at least in season 1, is just the town, the country western town, and then the mention of Shogun World. They show us that in the finale of season 1, but it's like, why did they pick this one, or this one, or this one? I know we're going to explore another park in season 3, but it's always like, was it a voting system? Was it because people liked certain points in history or fictitious history that they made
Twitter polls.
this?
I'm sure it's Twitter polls and Facebook polls. This is how they got this information. What do you want to see in your Dallas park?
Well, I mean, I know that when in my little bit of school, in my little bit of college, I know that you go for marketing, Mackenzie. Maybe you could speak to one of my very first projects in marketing was to design a theme park. You know, so you have to look at data that is like, you know, what is available to people in their everyday life that isn't available to them, that you know, because you need to create a demand, right? Like you need to see what people want to go do. So the West lends itself, you know, characteristically to this kind of like black hat, white hat behavior. What I mean is every Western is always either a bad guy going in to a town to you know, cause trouble, or a good guy coming in to save, you know, for the people from that trouble. So the very polar, the polarity, you know, like the whole whatever you'd call it, is the good and bad. It's very, I don't know why I'm trying to figure out a better way to say that, you know, good and bad, the duality is there. So it's very advantageous for somebody wanting to create an experience, because it seems like, you know, you could pick one way to go or another way to go, which we see them do. So I think, yeah, it's a mix of what is available in the real world, everything from setting, maybe climate has changed this. We'll see. You know, I mean, that was like the big theory in season 1, which I found very interesting. It's like, okay, maybe there's not like I guess it wouldn't be that bad, a bunch of deserts, but you know, like maybe they don't have, like, maybe the outside world is vastly different, because if you're going to have an attraction, it needs to be an attraction. It can't be like, you know, because if you live in fucking Utah or Arizona or New Mexico, you're gonna be like, all right, cool, more dry, arid land, you know what I mean?
I
think it lends itself story wise.
Yeah, I think all of these also are, you know, historical hotspots as well, and these are the genres that all of TV, movie, and literature actually use. So I think it's a little pop culture reference. I guess would that be pop culture? Yeah, it would be.
Like I said, it's cowboys and Indians. It's bad guy versus good guy. It lends itself to it, you know? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All that good stuff. Stripper poles, like Danny McKay said. Stripper pole world. That's what we'll get in season 4. This will be the best.
I mean, it's on HBO, so.
Yeah, the Wild West is nothing but syphilis and slow death in the real world. But yeah, the Hollywood depiction of it is, you know, gives a lot of agency to the guests. They can be the John Wayne, or they can be the Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. You know, that is he is the result of that type of behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Which isn't good. It's a Men in Black. What's up, Hacks Dogma?
Yes.
My trusty co-host for Before the Dust Settles.
Yes. Go check out Hacks' channel. And Hacks will actually be on with us for week 2 of Westworld. I can't remember the date off the top of my head right now, but it's just for the second episode. So he'll be on with us for that. Anyway. So the next question that I posed to the 2 gentlemen on the stream is, whose storyline of the main characters did you like? Was your most favorite to follow, and then what element of it had you hooked? And I'll also answer again. But
I for one really enjoyed Maeve's throughout the first season, especially because, you know, it was just it was obviously less hectic, but Dolores' was beautiful in hindsight because of what we're learning about William and the Man in Black, and her in the journey towards consciousness, in which is being depicted as it's the more broad, it is the main story thread. But also William and Logan, man, I really loved it, just like as like a study of just human nature, because I wrote this is when I was just started running the Amino, and I was just writing blogs, a much more noble pursuit. Sometimes I look back at those, I'm like, wow, that was actually pretty insightful, because I'm not trying to make a video for clicks. I was just writing what I felt. So I'm having existential crisis here. But anyways, I remember putting that. I found Logan's behavior, yeah, it was disturbing, and it's not the best depiction of a human being, but it's a realistic one. And I looked at his laissez-faire way about going throughout these actions and going and having fun is far less concerning than William's, because William only could act with these hosts or do something once he had a emotional connection. So like for me, if you're going to fucking kill, I guess no connection shows me less of a psychopath than having to get connected to them to like then want to have sex with the because this is posed to them. It's just a park where you can do anything. It's kind of like how people would look at prostitution. Their wife doesn't care because it's not a love connection. It's just a physical thing. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but that is how people write that off, and that's why it's the oldest profession in the book. So it's like the need for William to be connected emotionally with these hosts was really kind of disturbing to me. Not that I didn't, because then he does end up hurting them. You know what I mean? Like the emotional connection should be there because you recognize the sapience, but it is what it is.
I think Logan hit the nail on the head. It seemed, well, yeah, even Logan. He says you didn't even care about his sister. You didn't care about anything but rising to power. And I have this feeling that Dolores is the first thing, so to speak, that he actually fell in love with. And it's a tragedy because for him to lay himself emotionally out there like that, I think was the hardest thing that he's ever done, because he held everything in. He didn't really burst out and let his anger out. He learned who he was in the park, and he was kind of meek and scared and afraid. And this really opened him up, but also destroyed him at the same time. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see a McBoyle rise high in this world, Doyle. But I'll go with Dolores, I guess. I mean, it's just she has some of the most beautiful lines and speeches in the entire show or first season, and that classic damsel in distress that she breaks from, especially that moment where she basically saves William and guns them all down, and she just chose a story where she didn't have to be the damsel. And I think it's very, very beautiful and poetic. And when you rewatch the first season, you kind of see why Dolores is insane and on a path of vengeance in season 2, because the man that she loved for 50 years, I don't know if that's the exact time, but somewhere around there, for a long ass time. Well, he's not that old. It'd be about what, 30 years, Justin? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's more like 20 something, but it doesn't.
Well, either way,
felt like 50
murdered
years
her over and over and over again. And this is where she lost all faith in humanity. First, one thing she says is, "I thought you were different than all the rest, but humanity's just all the same to her at this point." This is where we're gonna have the Caleb conflict, if you want to call it that, in season 3. Okay, I think I'm done with my spiel.
I think you talking about the damsel in distress moment where she decides she doesn't want to be the damsel anymore. Maybe think for a moment, was that potentially the moment where Robert Ford potentially might have switched on the white narrative again? Because it was laying dormant for a while, and it's like, let me just get her used to holding a gun again, kind of thing.
Yeah, she is coaxed into that situation, but it's important to understand that the time spent with Arnold, the time spent of evolving and becoming a sapient, sentient being, culminated with the coding prior to her shooting him. But Wyatt is, whether or not she's conditioned by society and the constructs of this society to do certain things, you still did it. So Wyatt is a part of her. Wyatt is something she has done, and the very nature of her reality has given her these split personalities. And that damsel in distress, she is the beacon to either prey on or to help. So again, white hat, black hat, come back. But what it really focuses on is something I just started learning about. It's called post-traumatic growth, and it's a NC North Carolina psychologist that actually has been the front runner for this and has coined the phrase, but it's very true that people that go through these traumatic experience, sometimes they can get growth out of it. I'm not advocating for that type of behavior to, you know, be destructive to people, but it is interesting. We see that, I mean, that is the thesis of Westworld right there, right?
Yeah.
Pain equals, you know, reality equals, you know, that's the most real thing. So interesting.
Yeah. I think for me, the one of the main characters that was such a intriguing storyline to follow was probably because both of those, Dolores and Maeve, have been also very interesting to follow and throughout season 1. But Robert Ford's just blatant, submissive, the cover-up of the killings that happen within the building, and basically manipulating Bernard into believing one part of his life when he's actually a complete other person, and his name is an anagram and a mixture of all of the letters in Arnold Lever. And the fact that everybody just, whether they like it or not, just bows down to this creative genius, if you want to call it that. It's almost like Robert Ford is a twisted, or like a more twisted, if you want to even call it that, even though Disney was a twisted person, but I'm even more like outwardly twisted person into being like, I can change all the characters.
Definitely more twisted.
Yeah, but like
you want to play God, you got to get acquainted with the devil.
Exactly. So it's
a dirty business. And he's doing it under the watchful eye of Delos, and you know his methodology is questionable, but at the same time, you know, like it's important to take note that Maeve's whole like storyline for season 1 is all programmed. That's all her narrative that's programmed in, and they release it at the very end and let her make a decision. So it's again a juxtaposition with Dolores. Dolores is suffering throughout, as we see, because we're seeing more than the 2 weeks. We're seeing her hit the center and then reject, hit the center and then reject. So he is kind of like giving him a dose of what he sees working with Ghost Nation, and a key Cheta, you know, he realizes that under the watchful eye and under the circumstances, he cannot like just let them just be you know, self-aware right away. It's almost like in doses. So he like figures out ways to do it that works within the corporate structure, meaning he doesn't like, it's pretty obvious that, you know, if he just lets them all go off of their narratives, they're gonna be, what the hell's going on at Delos, and you know, throughout the park. So he has to do it with a little bit of cloak and dagger. And again, I think he fully admits to it, you know, that you got to get acquainted with the devil.
And you could also call him the ultimate hero, depending on which side you're looking at, especially with what we get in season 2. No, we're not talking about that yet, but the beautiful moment with Maeve. And that in season 1, I got to throw out, I mean, Ford, fantastic. Anthony Hopkins, I think, who was it? It was Danny McKay or Peter said something about Anthony Hopkins earlier. And he did fantastic. And the Jacques the Dog scene really struck me hard on the rewatch, because his child host self had killed the dog, and he was told by Arnold in his head to put it out of its misery, because all it knew was pain and suffering and how to cause pain and suffering. And I feel like that's definitely a parallel with what Ford thinks of humanity at this point. I think he's grown into this, but I believe, you know, Arnold's death put some light up into him. And yeah, Hax Dogma says a key cheta.
There you go. They say it 3 different times in the episode alone, so pick whichever one you want.
Hax, I think
Hax
that's a
says,
question.
how do we vote people off the island? Asking for a friend.
That's a question, I think, for Axel, because he watches Survivor or something.
Axel watches everything. So.
Yeah, so that's a question for Axel. Yeah, with Robert Ford, the fact that he effectively fools everybody besides the one person being William in the end of everything is as it's supposed to be. And it's a question later, but the smashing all my toys thing, which he threatened Charlotte Hale with, is he kind of does it in such a way where it keeps them all alive, but also at the same time, it's like, haha, my master plan is working for now. But also killing a bunch of people at the same time, which.
Hey, those rich bastards deserved it. Okay. I mean, geez. What is up, Chrissy of Old Stones?
Hello.
Yo.
Yeah. I think, what was it? Dolores was just getting revenge for Teddy. That's what she was doing. Because Teddy dies like every day, so that's just the revenge first.
Yeah.
Sweet old Teddy.
Teddy's a loser, okay? And we'll get into that later. Teddy is.
Well, part of the reason that Teddy is unable to evolve and why he's not a more layered character is because of his death every single day, sometimes twice, 3 times a day. Like every single time they go in, they get wiped. So he just never, gets a chance. It's like that old cliche start, and it's like good when you had a shitty day, but I hate that. I call it Hobby Lobby philosophy that I see on the internet. They all can be flipped on their heads so easily. You know what I mean? It's like it's just all this nonsense that people say to make people feel better. They look up on the internet, they found a picture with a quote and put it like, every day is a new start. I'm like, oh, so that means all the progress is done? Good day. I'm gonna go to an AA meeting and be like, every day is a fresh start. Throw away your chips.
Well, I mean, Ford told Teddy the hard truth in the first season too, that he would never realize that dream with Dolores. Never. And I think, it came true. It came true.
Because it's not really his dream. You know what I mean?
Nope.
No, it's Robert's dream. Da-da-da.
Oh.
So the first season provides us with 3 timelines. The current, presented mainly through the eyes of Men in Black. The past, mainly presented through the eyes of young William and Logan's. And the beginning of the park, represented through Arnold/Ford, I guess. Do you feel that this was well presented in signifying which timeline was which, and when the reveal of the Men in Black as William was presented to the audience, solidifying to the broader audience there was many timelines to keep with us?
Can I go really quick, Justin? Do you mind? I'm just going to bust up in here and give a simple explanation because we might have some comparisons with The Witcher. But no, I think they did it very well. If you go back and look, you can see certain subtleties. But with how the story wrapped up, the timelines being jagged like that was very purposeful and very impactfully done and wrapped up in a well way. Didn't just throw you in there. I think it was really good. Like I said, it's probably one of the most beautiful uses of separate timelines I've ever seen. But that's
nothing is wasted. This is all with a purpose, and it's a noble purpose, and it layers our story. We need Dolores' skewed timeline because that adds not only to seeing how the Man in Black gets to be the way he is, meaning how Jimmy becomes the Man in Black, but also to experience the process of bouncing off that Dolores is. So it's showing you so many different things at once. It's not for just deceiving. It's not at all for deceiving. It's deceptive in its very nature, but it's really showing you a broader picture. It could be presented to you as it does a little do and like in a flashback. It's like, I remember back then, and then you could go, but no. This should be confusing for the first watch because it's just showing you the process, and it's showing you, and it's not all about. It's definitely a cherry on top of the ice cream when we get the Sunday when you get the reveals, right? But the reveals then connect so much with Bernard and Arnold. We get to see why Ford would want to bring back his ex-partner because we see what Arnold does with Dolores. Because we see all of the scenes with Arnold when we do think it's Bernard. So we see what the reasoning for that would be. Nothing is wasted. And that's what, when I say season 2 took what we loved and put it where it didn't belong, that's what I mean, is they took skewed timelines, time frames, to be more, specific and accurate, but it doesn't need to happen in season 2. It's just like, oh, this is a big mystery about what happened. No. This shows us the arc of William in one season, and which would have took a lot more contrived storytelling, a lot more flashbacks, a lot more like, why are they even getting to this? And it's showing the process that the hosts go through, and specifically our main protagonist and who pushes the narrative train, Dolores. So this is beautiful. This is called for. But the thing is, once you get caught up in that, throw all the pieces on the ground and tell people to make a picture with the puzzle pieces, and everybody likes it first season. The picture we put together at the end of season 2, where like it was just like a big turd. And it's like, oh, so that's what it all was. It has to be beautiful at the end, and it was beautiful in season 1.
Yeah, like you said, we kind of get to experience the show as the hosts experience time.
Yes.
And it's insane. Can you imagine that you can't separate your memories from when is now? That's a very scary thought, and I think it's portrayed very well. I mean, just there's so many questions that they get into and even kind of answer. Season 2 was kind of a letdown at the end. It was strong up until episode 9, I believe, after the Akecheta episode. Kiksuya.
Kiksuya. But yeah, no, and that's, again, when you said about the memories, I just want to jump in on that really quick. I mean, valid point right there too. It's also showing us the how our memories are, not as we think we have this archive in our head, right? Of like all these events that happen, we just need to access it. We're like, yeah, it might be a little fuzzy. No, we manifest. We're the director, we're the cinematographer, we are the actors in these. And so like you get to see the difference in how they work cognitively to us as well. So it's touching on all these very interesting things that make you question, again, if you have to say they're not human, or they're not, worthy of personhood, we have to ask ourselves what makes us human and what makes us worthy of it. And we have to do the boxes, check the boxes. And it's a very advantageous thing for people to do. Sometimes doesn't show us and shine the greatest light on us, but I think that's kind of the point.
Also, not having a memory is something that protects us.
Yes.
Not remembering things perfect, your brain blocking certain things out. The hosts don't have this. This is a lot more traumatic of a, if you want to call it a brain experience, a lot more overload. That's why most of the hosts that awoken, most of them went insane and had to be decommissioned, like Abernathy. You just have the handful that are actually capable of your sentience / sapience.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really love how they did this, man. I cannot praise them enough for season 1.
Well, we were given the gift of consciousness, and then we were given, we got kicked in the ass with conscious, being self-conscious, being self-aware. So awareness is all great and dandy until you're self-aware. And that comes, it comes down to the choice of, do you want to live a life in which pretty much, you're blind by ignorance, or, which can be a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Poor Teddy. Bastard.
Teddy.
Some people would say perfect Teddy. You know what I mean? Good life.
Poor what door? With the multiple timelines that were presented in this show, it was done in such a way where you understood that there was certain things that happened in the past, certain things that were going on currently, and then things were in the distant past with the beginning of the park. And when the pieces come together in that about halfway point in the finale of season 1, where it's Men in Black explaining to Dolores, like, I've been here for 20 plus years going through the same story with you or without you, but you're following the same storyline every single time we go on this adventure. And they spliced it in and out of all of these things. Shows the power of this show and the power of the way they told this story. Because they could have easily done, like Justin said, the let's go into the past kind of look, instead of just showing us and editing the show into such a way where you can be like, oh, this is the past, but ease you into what's currently going on, going back into the way past when they're referencing like the development of the park, the Wyatt narrative, and the whole Arnold storyline and how Arnold wanted to see his son again. I think for the people who it took them until the finale episode to connect the dots of who that Man in Black and William were the same person, it's just like this thing of it all makes sense now, which is a comment that Peter Griffin brought up, saying, I remember when I finally figured out who the Man in Black was, I sat and thought about it for a few hours afterwards. And that proves the power of how the show progressed and used the multiple timelines correctly, and you weren't as confused especially looking back on it now.
You know, it's a nice touch with the McBoyle in season 1 is we have a great emphasis on the milk, and you know, to the McBoyles, milk is life. They bathe in milk, and everything's cured with milk. Just put a little milk on the knife wound. That's how it works. And see, this was the whole concept for Westworld and the milk.
Well, the gods were bathed in milk and honey.
Yeah.
He needs some milk. Or
I had to just talk a little bit more about Doyle McBoyle.
Or what was it? It was like with the milk is like growing, blah.
Oh yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good. You want to talk about the most romantic couple of the season, Logan and William?
Yeah, the brother husbands or whatever they're trying to be in the dynamic not so duo or whatever. So, speaking of dynamic, the dynamic between William and Logan presented us with the idea that they're complete opposites, even though the progression through time, William's crazy side becomes him, while Logan's inner demons take over. For Logan, it seems like a natural progression, or not. With William, is it the park's corruption and the park staying the same while he evolves and changes, or is it the path that he's meant to go down?
Well, I mean, honestly, Logan tried to honey dick William, and he ended up getting honey dicked himself. You know, the old CIA term. Never heard of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know it is. It's yeah. Yeah, you get again, it's William finds himself when he steps out of reality, so it's more real to him, and then that's why he's so disappointed when he gets the toy maze, because it's not for him. It doesn't mean anything to him. That's what they say when it's looking at Ray. You know, like you need to skew your vision to see, you know, 2 lamps, blah blah blah, instead of 1. What's real? And then, you know, he has growth within this false world. Or simulation, whatever you want to call it, this role play that he takes part in, which says a lot about how bottled up in the real world he is. Because why wouldn't he be thriving in the real world? Why is he so gun-ho and adamant? Why does all this change happen in this world? You know, that he doesn't have to abide by the rules of the world, but yet he changes in the real world because of that. So in Logan, again, I think it's just, I don't think Logan was a bad guy. I think he was a frat boy. But, you know, I stick with what I said. You know, he had inner demons, and he took the park at face value. He fell into the same trap, but that's the way it's, you know, presented to them, is you go there and you do this. So, you know, he didn't have high morals or anything like that, but I'd say they're about on par with everybody else. So it just says, I think it says a lot more about William for him to have this amount of change in this scenario rather than his own world, right? His own real world crumbles because of this. But then again, who's to say that that's the real world for him?
Yeah, you can even say that he treated Dolores more like a human than he did Logan, and Logan rode off on his high horse at the end. But you hate Logan this whole time, but especially after a little bit of season 2, when you go back and watch it, Logan's kind of just a normal dude. I think this is what definitely set him over the edge. And of course, he had demons. Everybody there seemingly had demons. He was a little rough and tumble, but he had played the game before, you know, so he knew what the rules were, so to speak. This was all a new experience for William, and he was just soaking it in, and he was taking it as it was real. I mean, because it is portrayed as so real, and I think more than anything, William hated the real world and wanted this to be real. That's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, this isn't meant to be in any way like demeaning or to take it in a negative light, but it does make you wonder about, you know, okay, some people are way more into like role play per se than other people. So it makes you wonder, you know, why is that, for one? You know, and William is definitely more into role play, right? When he gets a fresh slate, a clean slate, and goes into this park, it's like he's walking carefully. He's taking every step with precision. He's not just saying, "Oh gosh, gee golly, I don't want to do that, Mr. Logan." No, he's very calculated about how he is going to, you know, go about everything. So it's almost like I'm so unhappy in the real world. And I'm not making a blanket statement. I'm just using the show and what they have given us. And so obviously he wasn't happy in the real world. So when he gets to role play, it's not just, oh, I'll have fun for a few days. It's like, I'm going to change everything about me, right? I'm going to make everything different. This is my chance to finally be happy.
Yeah, it seems for Logan, he was already a person who was not making a blanket statement, but a lot of times, not all the time, kids who have rich or come from a rich background usually suffer from something, and because of access to whatever they may have. And for Logan, it was, I guess, booze and probably drugs and being the popular boy in every room, like we kind of discover in season 2 a little bit more, but they give more of his backstory. And it was those parts of himself that came out or were amplified in the park, and we see how swiftly William takes over with those, like how their last scene in season 1 is like, now it's my park, you are tap on the shoulder, like, or on the head, little boy, you're gonna be crazy, and I'm gonna tell your dad that you are nuts and you're a psycho and you have lost your mind, so I'm taking over now, and I'm taking your sister with me, and I'm going to rule. Like, this is my dynasty now, almost. And it almost seems like eventually, which we get into in season 2, about the whole James Delos and how that was manipulated as well with the Men in Black. He comes into this family, and because he comes into this family, eventually sets off this bomb, which is himself, which is in some ways kills 2 people, the siblings of his wife and her brother, and then leads to everything else that happens later on. And
He donated to a bunch of charities though, so he's cool.
Yeah, philanthropy makes everything okay. But yeah, who told that story? Like, if he told James Delos, first off, a Scottish guy, very Greek last name, a little odd. But you know, like, what happened? He's like, so your son's crazy. I'm like, okay, so clearly from that story, you're both fucking nuts. And you know what I mean? Like, this is, neither of you are getting it. He's like, so then I sent him off naked after went on this vengeful quest and all that. He's like, so clearly Logan can't do it. I'm like, yeah, clearly, and clearly you can't either, psychopath. The fuck out of here.
I'm sure William didn't tell him the whole story. He just told him that Logan went nuts or some shit.
Yeah.
And Logan was the only one that didn't get mapped, right? Is that correct?
No, he did.
He did.
Yeah, they had the build. I forget. They built James though off of Logan's memories a lot, from what I recall.
Yeah, because
we'll do a check. Well, I'll check that at a later date.
Fact check.
But he did get mapped.
Yeah, the park for William, it was presented with maybe his ideal person, I don't know, in Dolores, and then it's like something you can't have, but you end up having at the same time, and then having to leave, because even though they try to beat it into you, that it's like, oh, there's this girl that's waiting for you at home, like, buddy, like, come on, like, my sister's like, you know, yet it was because of the picture of the sister, which ultimately turns Peter Abernathy nuts. I don't know, like, it evolves and it changes, and it almost seems like Dolores was the breaking point, and it's like, oh, I can have her all the time, visit her all the time, but in that process of not being able to take her with me, I just go crazy, and we find out more of the backstory of always spending time every year in the park or whatever, which Juliet says all the time. It was like, he was always in the park.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just think that, I think that what we see is clearly, again, he has more agency over what's happening in the park, right, from the get-go, right? Like, so it's like whatever is holding him back that he feels in the real world does not apply there. So that relationship with Dolores, in every sense to him, probably feels more legitimate because he feels like he's choosing it. And also, we have to remember that once the Riddle of Sphinx shows us the James Delos experiment, that he also is. I really like the idea that he found the most real love in the park, and they kind of go away from that in season 2. And he's like kind of like laughs at her and all that. And I guess you can take it. I mean, I make it better in my mind, thinking like, okay, he was turned down, so like, you know. But they do kind of go away from it, but they do kind of lean into like he is more so like trying to get to which he is. He's trying to figure out to reverse engineer consciousness, you know, because he saw the evolution of Dolores, and he figured, okay, if I can get, you know, that's why he's trying to find deeper meaning in that maze, is because he figures, you know, he's pretty much it's a ticking time clock, you know, for James Delos. So he's trying to figure this out and, you know, get the key to immortality. So yeah, you know, there's two things that are driving him there, that realization of the broader you know, meaning of all this, and I guess broader implications, and then his love. But they do kind of kick love to the curb in season 2.
Oh yeah. What is love? That's MIB's theme song.
Don't hurt me no more.
Yeah. I keep it up. Anyway. So another question to pose is, the phrase "these violent delights have violent ends" is mentioned repeatedly throughout the first season, and it seems like Ford uses this to his advantage in the final narrative, Journey into Night. The hosts were once a violent delight would bring a violent end to the shareholders and high-paying guests in the park. What do you think about these violent delights?
This directly correlates and parallels with Jock the dog and the story, you know, from Ford's childhood. If you think about it, that was the first violent delights that had violent ends in his life. And apparently that affected him more than anything, the soulless bastard. But it's very beautiful and scary because it's kind of true. You know, if you choose to, just in general, if you choose to live a violent life, you're going to have a violent death. And it goes back to the mantra of warriors and people throughout history, and, you know, serial killers and alike. I see you, Justin. Go.
What? You always see me.
No, I saw you take a deep breath like you were about to go on a tirade.
No. It's you know, obviously it's another literary connection with Romeo and Juliet. Friar Lawrence tells Romeo, he's warning him about his lusty ways, you know, about you know, it's pretty much, be careful, don't fall, you know, victim to your baser desires. And if you take the route of trying to satisfy every base primitive desire, it usually ends badly. You know, you need to think about the deeper implications of these actions, and that it's Friar's like pretty much, yo, lay off that Juliet chick, you know, because it ain't gonna end well, and it doesn't. So it's, you know, it's a literary reference, which Westworld loves, but also I love that because it's stories, you know, stories empowering, you know, life and affecting life and so forth, and the power of stories that they have on us all. You know, like I love that video about Dr. Ford. He just wants to tell us stories, and it's all the stories he tells. So yeah, it makes sense that it's a Romeo and Juliet you know, take, and yeah, it applies. It's all these people go to that park just to like satisfy themselves for whatever reason, and they don't think about the deeper implications. So it's a forewarn. It's a, you know, it's a tale of you know, it's Romeo and Juliet was like a scare tactic for young lovers. So that it's foreshadowing that same thing. It's like, this shit ain't gonna end well. It's not gonna end well.
And what they establish in the episodes is the humans can hurt the hosts, but the hosts can't hurt the humans. So the humans have that violent delight of, oh, I can do anything I want with these people, and they can't really do anything to me. But because of them not being able to do anything to you, once Robert Ford decides, all right, they've had enough. I've had enough for now. Switch them on, and all right, now we're going to be your violent end, is pretty much what's kind of presented in that final narrative of, well, here we go. I made all this money, I did all this stuff, and now you want to roll them back? What do you want to do with them? Oh no, you gotta just take them how I leave them, basically. And I think of watching this a couple of times, I've come to realize that the smashing all my toys and making them bad people, if you want to do that, or giving them the advantage of, oh, you want to hurt people? Okay, you can do that, was one of those situations where you're like, that's a great choice, because it means it's like, well, we've held them back for so long that here, let them go. Like, let them have what they want. It's like pushing your children out of the nest because I'm retiring. That's like, because he views them kind of as his children, even though we don't know how he was in the real world with a family structure. So,
well, he leaves off with his what do you call it? He becomes music like Mozart and Chopin or whatever.
yeah,
So basically, he lives on through the house. But we know he lives on through the cradle at this point too.
I also think it's fair to say that, even if they didn't rebel or become, conscious, that, it has implications. We saw that, the Man in Black's, his, he had to face the music before they rebelled, with his family, finding out who he was in the park. So again, you lose your humanity by the very definition once you start acting the way they act within this park. Once you deny the basic human rights of another. So there's a downside to it without even the whole robot revolution. But yeah, the robot revolution fucking helps, for sure.
I'm surprised no one suspected that he was going to do something bad. Like, I know Charlotte Hale had her inklings as she saw Dolores walking behind her, but it's like, you gotta expect the man who's like imagined this whole thing to be like, oh, let me just crush it before I go away.
I think that it was more just their lack of imagination, for lack of a better phrase, but they didn't think if they figured if the hosts were just switched to be able to do whatever they wanted, they would still have control. They would still be able to get that control back fairly quick. And it's a good bet to hedge that he's not going to smash his toys per se, because they are like his children and it's all of his life work. So it's like he's not going to break them all. Also, if he does like turn them loose, worst case scenario, we'll be able to get them back. There's this sense of control that they have over them has just been just reinforced time and time again. Every single time they go to the park. I mean, she's just having sex with Hector, like right when she gets there, making him his bitch, like right, like like they have this entitlement that there's in their head. I can guarantee they're not really that worried, even if like worst case scenario happens and they start shooting, because again, they don't look at them as something they can't turn off.
They didn't even bring security. That's how much they don't give a shit.
Yeah, they needed better security. Their security is just terrible.
They had like maybe 2 people in the
the stormtroopers.
There's one dude with a muff pistol over in the corner.
The stormtroopers that fail from stormtrooping school, whatever it's called, like they go to Delos UA. Like the ones that can shoot, even the guys and the stormtroopers never hit their target, but like those are the good ones. The ones that get turned down, though, then they go for the QA job. So yeah, they're so incompetent.
Yeah.
It's hubris. Hubris kills them, right?
Exactly.
That guy, they ain't gonna do shit.
Well, speaking of employees, through the eyes of the employees provide us a closer look into how we as the audience view the rest of the characters as well as the story. As the hosts are in some sense unreliable narrators, and 4 changes the game with a snap of a finger. Who out of the group of human characters is the most gullible to the world around them that is controlled by Robert Ford?
Lee. Probably Lee.
Oh,
Lee and Charlotte, right? I mean, Charlotte seems like she knows a lot, but she does seem very ignorant to a lot of the machinations of it. She sees it just the surface level, I feel like. I don't know. just in different ways, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are like really ignorant to it. It's just, again, it's it's the hubris. You know what I mean? That's I would because they all kind of know. Like Charlotte knows, Teresa knows, and they all want to roll him back. They and leave, and Lee is just more so out for himself. That but I guess I just say him because he's just still like job hunting, right? He's like head hunting within the corporation to try to get better. Everybody else is kind of like, oh, shit's going kind of funky here. He's like, I want to get to be the lead writer. So I just say him because his ambition stays within the constraints of like his actual career path, which is good for something's bad during a robot revolution.
Yeah, I think it's Lee side more because he had the whole thing of let me make a new storyline and have all this, that, the other thing, like and then Robert Ford just shuts him down like, no. No. Like, nice try, but no.
Lee just wanted to get everybody's rocks off, basically. Like, oh, I was able to get their rocks off.
Yeah.
Because he had these stories that were just semi-simplistic. Ford called him out on it. And, this is what turned him against Ford for the most part. And this is when he tries to cozy up to Charlotte, who I think she sees the park a lot like Logan did. She's like missing a lot that's there. So I'll go with Charlotte just to be different, because I think she almost sees herself as a god. How the hosts kind of thought they were gods to begin with. Well, she's one of the people that probably thinks she's there, or she's working her way to the top. She wants that power, and I think she's blinded by that. And it's a lot like, yeah.
Well, she has information that others don't too. She's coming there. She knows the broader picture, but also we see in season 2 how she's just a middleman in the end because, like there's people above her. So I just, like Lee, they didn't even have to take out. Like Elsie is the one that's the most inquisitive. She's the one that's like most like on, she's on Elsie on the case. But how important you are if Bernard knocked you out or killed you, like, you know what I mean? Like they take out the people that are a problem. Lee, they just literally let wander, like that fucking idiot. Like he goes in the cold source and nobody's there. Yeah, they're like that moron's not doing anything. So yeah, you can gauge how you're worth by if you're killed or if you're taken out of commission, essentially.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And I mean, Charlotte Hale was left there too, but didn't Bernard need her for something? Some kind of clearance, wasn't it?
Well, they made sure to smuggle the information she was trying to get out. They made sure to put it in Peter Abernathy, which then they let out in the cold. So they're on to her plan. Okay. You know what I mean? So like they take the measure. She can't necessarily probably as Elsie was be put in a cave because people are going to ask where she's at and stuff like that. But I mean, it's suspension of disbelief. But
I just got to say, Clementine had the dead eye on the Man in Black when we cut at the end of season 1. I want to know what kind of gymnastics William did to get away from those bullets, because he was pretty much dead to rights. I just want to see that. I want to see that fucker just doing some cartwheels and some back handspring.
They stopped filming. They just stopped filming, so it didn't matter. I know. The story's not happening.
Don't see someone die on camera. Always question that shit.
Yeah. Once the shit stops making sense, that's when the director has to yell, "Cut!" That's your job. You're like, "Oh shit!" Like when you're writing a screenplay, you're like, and then shit stops making sense. We'll take a break, and then we will come back when I can make this make sense again. So yeah, no, I get you. I mean, he was just pleased as hell when he got shot. Right? He's like. Yay.
Oh god, he got instant wood, man. He was ready to go.
Well, we've all been shot and been aroused.
That's just the nature of humanity, and that's what we find out in season 1 of Westworld. Bullets make boners. Okay, so we figured it out, guys.
Tagline. I think, Teresa also was one of those individuals who, moments before their death, was not gullible to the fact of, oh, so this wasn't like real, like this whole relationship was just a facade and a storyline just so you could get more information out of me, and planning and so on and so forth. And she was seduced by the horse version of Arnold Weber. So I mean, lot of
anybody else think Bernard's kind of sexy? I ain't gay, but he's kind of sexy.
Well, you're definitely gay, but yeah, I would say that Teresa was allowed to seduce Bernard. You know what I mean? Like, and again, she got killed, so that's like if I was sitting there and I was still around, I'd be like, "What the fuck? You guys didn't kill me or put me in a like I'm important. I know shit. Like, no, idiot, keep wandering around." I'm like, fine. I'd be
Teresa
so
fell
ashamed.
down the stairs. The old classic line. She fell down the stairs.
Yeah, what happened to her? She fell. Like, how'd the bullet get in her head? She fell on a bullet. I don't. Just shut up. You're good.
She was carrying a gun and then she just fell down the stairs. Anyway, yeah, like even when they have to explain away her death, like Stubbs is like, "Huh?" It's like, "What?"
Well, he's a host too, so yeah.
But it's one of those things where before you figure that out, it's like one of those.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, yeah.
Because it's trying to figure out how the what is it, like the thought gymnastics that Robert Ford has to play with everybody of like making sure that there's no plausible loophole that no one human can figure out.
Yeah, in their clear glass rooms, which I know is a nice aesthetic, but man, for storytelling, I'd be like, damn, this can't not be the way it is. Maybe just walking straight through all those halls. It's like, ugh. But yeah, those are literally only complaints I can have for like season 1.
I would say at least we should have seen at least one worker or tech like just walk into the glass one time because they didn't notice it was there. That would have gave me, that'd have been pretty realistic. I don't know. Yeah, it was like a viewing zoo. I dug it. It looks really good cinematically.
Yeah, but the psychopath and the
practical.
In the bicameral mind that's like about to like go nuts on Hector, like there's everybody, all the other dudes and chicks, everybody, they can all see him. He's dancing. He's about to just be a disgusting freak. It's like, Jesus, these people, man.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, he just don't give a fuck.
Honey Badger don't care.
No.
Well, Hector was like, goodbye. He was like, you want to try and do that with me? Goodbye.
Sasuke says I prefer Maeve's pronunciation of Bernard. Bernard.
Bernard. Take your vitamin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Glacia.
Or as Hax calls him, Baynard.
Oh, everybody's Bay to you. You're my Bay, Hax.
Baynard. Hi. Look, I'm telling you, something about that guy. He's just got it going on.
Well, he's smart. He's sexy smart,
There you go. Brains and a little bit of beauty. Or brains and beauty. Does he defy them all? That's the question.
Aluminium.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Advertisement.
Yeah, advertisement.
Advertisement. Yeah. Vitamin. Take your vitamin tablet. Yeah.
Vitamin tablet. Anyway.
Sorry. Let me check my numbers for European viewers. I think it's only 11 to 15%. I'll lose them. All right.
They're gone.
We're good.
Goodbye.
I love all my
goodbye.
Bye. Au revoir. The beauty of season 1 is that one of the ideas is consciousness is not a journey up, but a journey within, and the hosts come to realize that through the season, through their stories to evolve and change, as well as and is best presented with Dolores and Maeve, with their journeys of self-discovery. But whose journey expresses what this truly means?
What? As far as season 1?
Yeah.
I definitely think Dolores, because we find out that she found that place once, and she found it like 15 to 20 some years ago, and then she needs to re-find it. So it's not something that she's going to achieve. It's something she's reaching in to find. And again, it's like we like to put things, we like to pose things as elevation and rising to, because we like to. But we think we are higher beings, and we like to just kind of play that game of like, oh yeah, we're above this. So we look at it as something they can't do. So if it's a reach within, that doesn't really fit our narrative, right? Because that, by its very definition, means they already have it. They just need to, get a hold on it. And I think that's really what it's about. So Dolores.
All right, I would have to agree with you on that, but I will throw some Baynard out here, because he has lived this so many times. He's finally somewhat woken up, but he doesn't see that's the point, right? He doesn't really know who he is yet, but he's had these experiences in a traumatic way. You can, ah,
He knows who he is. He doesn't know what he is as far as like physical being wise, as far as him not being a flesh and blood human, Homo sapien per se. That's where the whole sapien hood comes into play. I agree though. I mean, they all have it, right? They all just need a little bit of information that isn't wiped. 'Cause Ford wipes it. Dolores gets killed, gets it wiped. So it's just they need access to the footage.
So what about this? What about first season MIB as a host? And this is one of the many times he's went through that loop that Dolores has told him about. And maybe you could just say he's the host with the most self-discovery here. But that's just me throwing out some weird tinfoil that's definitely probably not true.
In Mabes is beautiful too, like you just put in the chat, Mackenzie, because what happens there is we find that's her narrative loop that's programmed, and again, that's another commentary on social conditioning and so forth. How different are weeks? We're not very different at all, if at all. And we find her journey starts at the very end. So the only reason I would say that Dolores, you just get more of the depiction of it shown to you than in Maeve, because Maeve, the whole time we think we're following a host that is going on their own and following this route that is not supposed to be what they're doing, but in all reality that's exactly what they programmed her to do. And then they just flip it, and what's interesting is Maeve is the only one that wants to stay, or her love resides still within the park, and she, unlike Dolores, was the one that first off has never been out of the park. Dolores and both Bernard have been out of the park at certain points, you know what I mean? And even a key Chetta has been out of the park, so that's interesting that they have desires outside. So and Maeve does not. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but she gets programmed to leave the park, and her decision is to stay. And so her priorities and what she holds dear stays within the park as well. So again, you could argue that even once she is conscious and has free will, that she's still been conditioned to want what she can't have, which is inside the park. So, again, once they become like us, they're still just like us, and they can be conditioned. Look at how much Dolores was still very much so conditioned to use that gun again, even though it wasn't blatantly programmed in. Come on. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, Dr. Ford would definitely be going to jail for some time for that murder. If it was a murder of somebody else. Sorry, don't get it. But you get what I mean? Like, he's like, here's that gun you love. Here's this. Like, you're not typing it in, but there's quite a bit of foul play there.
Well, something that you said there is kind of the illusion of choice is something you can get in, even with Maeve. Like, oh, you're going to tell me to do something, I'll do the opposite. Is that really you choosing? The same thing with Dolores. You tell me all these bad things I'm going to do. You want me to kill you either way. So it's kind of two separate scenarios. That's where they fucking come. They are perfect with this when they do this with Maeve and Dolores, and how they're on opposing ends, which I think they'll meet in the middle at some point with samurai swords, apparently. But Bernard is just a clusterfuck later. He's still scrambled and figuring out what's going on. And, if he's in Hell's body, that's going to be pretty fun to look at, I think. He's going to go through even more self-discovery. We see a child there as well, so he's going to have some Charlie vibes, so maybe he'll get a flashback or something. I don't know. Yeah, I said it. Bernard is in Charlotte Hell in season 3.
Yeah. I mean, the end result, if the end result is truly them, being just like us per se, in many ways, how much do we know and how many decisions do we make on our own? So that still the ultimate answer is very little control we have, even if you take a libertarian, a deterministic view on it. I mean, like, all the things around us happen to us and we can just choose how we react to them, because technically that's true. So yeah, I don't want to have a crisis on air, but yeah, it's not going to still be these all they won't be fully in control.
Yeah, I think with whose is presented better, in at least season 1, it's probably Dolores because the whole idea of what is consciousness is spoken to her and through her with Bernard slash Arnold. And I even found my old note on this. And when it's Bernard talking to Dolores, he says the steps of being a quote unquote human is memory, improvisation, self interest, and then suffering is the final thing that people have to deal with. The hosts have only went through self-interest, and then now it's when they start to deal with the suffering, because the suffering used to get wiped from them. But now it's
Like
almost
Clementine, they remembering.
so it's
That
not
was the most redneck thing I've ever said.
like Clementine, but it's. I don't want to make it like a whole thing of like who suffered more or whatever, but it's almost a situation of do you mourn the person that you knew, which is for at least Maeve, it's the daughter that pulls her back in and I guess grounds her form of humanity, while with Dolores, it's one of those where it's like she was burned and scorned by the human William, and the one thing that's keeping her there is Teddy, kind of, but just another version of a host. So it's I don't know. I want
Teddy is good William, I
Yeah.
think. I really do think Teddy's good William.
Teddy's what William wants to be. And you know, again, like Maeve's story, okay, this all comes down to like how a story is structured, and Maeve's journey is just as good as Dolores's. Dolores's gives us the ins and outs of how it works, and that's why we're able to enjoy Maeve's journey at more of a surface level, because again, that's how television works. You allocate more time to your main protagonist, and some people take a back seat, but they layer other characters. But Maeve's was my favorite in season 1 because of that, and you get to do that only because of what is happening with Dolores and vice versa. So it's not really even different, it's just being depicted differently and showcased differently on screen. So yeah, you can do the one because you're doing the other. So it's important to take note. Now one is more valid or less, it's just depicted that you're shown, eyes are on it, and you know, it's boots on the ground. Who do you see the story through, and how do you see it? And you can, you know, put different boots on the ground for that one. It's smart.
I try to envision myself as Felix while I'm watching the show.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wonder when they made the decision. Sorry, when they said, okay, well, so who's gonna just like do whatever Maeve says? Like, we got 2 cucks. They're both named after cats. Get them. I mean, like, no faith in those dudes. I guess faith, but at the same time, like, I guess under like the guise of like what you'd hire them for, like there's like they're bad, and like she says, you're a terrible human. I mean, that is a compliment. Like, these cucks will do it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, what is their vetting? Do they do background checks? How do they hire these people? Because you got the one creeper just, you know, KY jelly lubing up for Hector, but then also you got, I mean, Felix is semi-competent, but then Sylvester is just a shit bag. I don't know. They just have to. I need to know what their employee vetting process is, because I may need to not hire. I may need to submit my application to Delos, and you know.
Well, how desensitized they
Hector
get working there too, right? If you're dealing pretty much in a slaughterhouse, you know, they're going to be very desensitized, and they're going to disassociate quite a bit, right? And I don't think I'd find myself baning corpses, but yeah, I guess you could go slightly downhill.
Well, what's the difference between a Hector and a sex doll? That's the big question, right?
About $25.
When it's turned off, is it just a sex doll? You know.
I guess I don't know.
I don't. Yeah,
write a paper on it and insert it. You know, the
video,
lecture.
a video essay.
Yeah, take your lecture around the world. Difference
See,
between.
I think the grunt positions. I see your point, House Lorebridge. She says I feel like those are entry level grunt positions, but I think the grunt positions are the ones with the people with the fire hoses just hosing down the dead bodies. I think they might be up just one more tier, but you're right, they're pretty low on the totem
Yeah, but it's
pole.
low in a company that's trying to like figure out immortality. You know, it's bigger. This isn't fucking McDonald's, people. Like, you know what I mean? Like entry level, like, okay, like it's entry level at SpaceX times like 100. Like,
The
yeah.
waiter at the Mesa bar is entry level.
Yeah, but still, like any other place, they'd be Secretary of State, or maybe something in competence, like CEO.
Yeah, the barista bar.
You think
Yeah.
a bartender gets good tips? It's probably just a host, though. They're not going to pay people. See, that's the thing, right? You make Bernard. He's like the perfect worker. Then you got an argument with replacing all humans with hosts. And then you start to question the show. Why do they actually have human employees? Because they are vastly inefficient and they bang everything that doesn't move. And I don't know, even Elsie with the necrophiliac, they record that. She caught him on the logs. And I guess this just gave him ammunition to know to erase the logs after he gets done banging them. That's all that I confirmed with that. I'm glad Armistice and her badass tattoo bit off more than she could chew and distracted the guy while Hector penetrated him with a bone saw. I don't know. It's pretty fantastic.
I think, yeah. And yeah, with the hosts, with the humans, working with a bunch of hosts, we have to have people that we ourselves can connect to, besides the most human person out there, which is, or else the only human person on there would be Man in Black, Logan to some extent, and then Robert Ford. So you need to have at least a couple other characters that are humanists like. But yeah, some of those people,
I'll be in season 3. Don't worry.
Yeah, and you're the human, so there you go.
But I want to choose to be a host.
No, you got too many flaws.
This is about choosing what you want to be.
We'd be human.
The first immortal becomes a lowly minimum wage worker who robs ATMs with Marshawn Lynch. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So what's that guy doing? He's smoking weed and just playing Xbox. Like, all right, that's what he's doing.
That's
what he's done
weed,
with it.
making videos.
Yeah.
Well, I think also too with the humans is there's a reason. Every human doesn't usually, unless they have something about their personality that doesn't log every single conversation that they've ever had and how long the conversation lasts, like the hosts do. Because I think that's a question that Bernard asks her. It's like, how many interactions have you had since we last had a conversation? And she says like 1,000 and something. How many people have you ever spoke to? This many. And so there's a reason why they have to keep track of those. Well, the humans are like, I don't know. I talked to 5 people last week or whatever. So it's
Stubbs is head of security, so he's literally not seeing things potentially because they could have him programs just like Bernard, and also he probably definitely is erasing shit as well. So
Stubbs, I hear, is pretty prevalent in season 3. Maybe even a highlight up in there. I did come to like Stubbs a little bit. In the first season, you don't get to know him too well. A little bit. He's just known as the guy who wants to shoot first and ask questions later. These things are fucking dangerous, which you gotta, from his perspective as a security guy, he's got to see all the danger that's associated with that. And he's like, I know at night before he goes to bed, these motherfuckers gonna remember one day. They're gonna fucking remember one day. Then they're gonna be glad I'm around. Like, he's working himself up. He can't sleep at night. He's just waiting for them to turn. And he gets his wish, but it's not as fun as he was expecting.
Exactly.
He gets taken by an Akacheta.
Akacheta.
I hate myself. You love Stubbs, okay?
It's good to have a robot be your head of security. Anyway.
I'm gonna start saying Akacheta now. Fuck. Akacheta. Justin's got me. Turn to the other side.
But don't forget, who was it? Was it Sasuke that mentioned Vitchcheck?
Oh no,
that's actually we'll say people say Berserk or whatever. Yeah, no, listen to a Danish person, a Scandinavian person.
Yeah,
say
I
that.
looked it up on the Scandinavian pronouncing.
Yeah, Vitschek is far more. Trust me, I say Vitschek. I'll die on that hill. Go talk to a Scandinavian person. Go talk to somebody that's a Dane. They will agree with me much. Probably more likely to agree with me than any way you're going to be saying it.
I've actually looked up I have a Danish site that I've been going to for this Ragnarok, and actually looked it up. Hold on.
I bet it's close.
But while you do that, I will pose the last question, which is, we had at some point suspected Ford was going to go down with his ship making it so he would metaphorically smash the toys, making that the end of season 1 was one of the best parts of the whole season. But what is your favorite part of season 1?
Vitsek. That's what the site says.
See?
Vitsek. So we were both on each end of it.
Yeah. And if you listen to them in the show, that is more so how they say it. They don't say Vitsek or however you're going to want to say it. No, they say Vitschek. It's a Vitsek. Vitsek.
There's no
there you go.
R. Oh, the R is silent, I guess. Vitsek.
If you gotta pick apart the way I say something, at least you must like what I'm saying. You know, you must be really reaching to find something wrong with what I do.
You got me curious.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
get you all curious, like Benjamin Button, motherfucker. All right. So what?
Right.
Favorite part of one.
If I'm 50% right, that means I'm 50% more right than you. All right. So there you go.
You're a growing boy.
Yeah. So there we go. And at least I pleased the sapien hood out there as well, because everybody's getting on people for not saying it. So you guys got to fix your game too. Got to fix your game.
My game's fucked, bro. It's not getting
everybody.
Fixed. Look at me.
Yeah. That was what
light bulb head.
Is Hax in the chat? Yeah, somebody was picking apart what Hax was saying. Like, well, that never happens. And they were getting you for mispronouncing something, man. It's a dirty world that we live in, Hax. So when Hax Dogma is getting critiqued, you got to really step up the game, because that fella rarely misspeaks. Let's see.
Don't put any pressure on him or anything.
No.
Well, I'm not saying everything he says is right. I love him to death, but he says it well. So that is why he is the play-by-play and I'm the color. All right. So love you, Hax. You know that he's you spent half your time, you told me the other day, in Baltimore and half his time in Texas growing up. The accent represents none of that. I think he's a spy. So we'll get into that on Sunday. So it'll be an interrogation.
Operative.
Yeah, he probably would. See, he's a smart fellow. I don't trust him.
He puts subliminal messages all throughout his videos. So
yeah, he does. It's smart.
Kill your parents and stuff like that.
One of the best in the game.
Yes. He says no pressure with like a.
See, like about season. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your favorite part?
I would have to say that realistically, I think that the finale you just can't beat, because it just ties up all those loose ends, and it ties them up, and it enhances the story. You get the shock and awe of the and I have my blog where it's time stamped that the second episode I did, just like many people know, make the connection with the Man in Black. But besides that, get the Bernard 2 episodes earlier. I think Triple A, you get that in. But it's not just all shock and awe. It really makes everything so much more clear, and I would argue that you wouldn't even have to get that information for the story to be cohesive. It definitely helps, because you do need to show that you're showing a vast amount of time other than 2 weeks that have been depicted to us. But what I'm saying is the overreaching themes and messages of the show are explored so much more deeply when you get those connections. It makes you question more of what you've seen, not in a bad way, but it makes you question these philosophical and theological aspects to times 100 after that. And it was so beautiful. Just the dialogue, Anthony Hopkins, come on, just beautiful. It doesn't get any better. That's why I thought they wouldn't have him back. So I'm like, how can you, if you put in that performance, you can't do any better. But he's
seemed
like
Bernard went on the same journey twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of in a sense. that same journey of
with season
self-discovery
2.
twice. That's something I didn't like. And if they were going to do that, I feel like they should have postponed the reveal. Maybe gave vast hints. But, you know, that would have fucked up everything, too, when you think about it.
And
So,
what are you talking about, season 2?
See, yes, well,
Yeah.
season 1, wait for the Bernard reveal till later. Or at least the fact that he's Arnold, I guess. You know, but I don't know. That wouldn't have worked with Dolores. It wouldn't have worked with a lot of things. So, you know,
it lets
you'd
you
have
in
to
on
rework
the
the whole
bigger
fucking
plan,
story.
and it lets you in on how it could be happening too. So, like, you know, it gives you the rules of the world. So, I mean, I see what you're saying, but also, like, pragmatically, you kind of got to drop that 1-2 episodes earlier, or at least an episode earlier.
Well,
too much at once, right? I mean, come on.
Well, but Bernard's got to find himself again in season 3.
No, I think that season 2 they shouldn't have scrambled his brains, and I don't like the idea that we are going to see a new incarnation of him again, because it's, you know, he's built, but he was originally built with Dolores' memories as well. So I don't think it should be that big of a difference. So the Bernard we originally got was built with her help as well. So yeah, they don't need to take that egg beater in there again. I'm not into that. I'm not into a show of who am I? I don't know. Like I was joking with Johnny off air, I'm writing a novel and it's all about people that don't know who they are. And we won't set up the characters that they are. Their names will just be like Jeff, Steve, Megan, and like Lisa. But they'll really be like Frank, Marvin, Sansa, and I don't know, Cindy. Nobody knows who any of them are, but it's just a big clusterfuck. It's just the most confusing thing ever. I'll be like, that's really Frank. They're like, who the fuck is Frank? You never told me. I'm like, well, you don't know. You'll find out though. It's a whole story with no character development whatsoever.
That's like what's that game called? The one where you have to guess what the other person is.
Oh yeah. Is that isn't that the dating game? Isn't it
No, it's like the cards and they pick like one person.
Oh.
And it's like you have to be like use
guess who?
Yeah, guess who. That's
yeah.
That's
yeah. Like for the pearls, I want the pearls to be Steve, Frank, Mark, and Cindy. Who are they? They're Steve, Mark, Frank, and Cindy. Because I don't want to go through this who's who again, and you know their characteristics will be shown. They're just new people. You'll get to know them. They're very generic.
Or they were like the guests. I don't know, 10, 15, 35, and 40.
There you go. I don't. Yeah, you make it. Yeah, let's go even simpler. I don't care. Yeah, their characteristics will be very, very simple, and just you'll know exactly who they are and what their motivations are. Back on track. So
as long as they bring Lawrence back, I'm good.
Lawrence. DA's calling out.
You can tell. Yeah. I ran out of names, obviously, for my metaphor. So I mean, the metaphor wasn't that great.
You think I was gonna have
all the names for it? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
The best part of season 1 when it's
waking up.
Best parts of season 1. Well, where old Slim had the nitroglycerin just spewing out of his ears, and Lawrence blew him up. That was pretty good. Probably because I just saw that not that long ago. We get it. I thought it was really cool on the train where we're getting hints about Ghost Nation and how fierce they are. The train itself with the armored windows was pretty fantastic. And the time that Dolores and William spent there was very, very key. Dolores gets to show off her artistic ability, drawing things she's supposedly never seen. The Valley Beyond. This is kind of one of the first hints we get of the Valley Beyond, I believe. And if this is where William completely falls in love with her. You get the special embraces. But other best parts of season 1, I'm just trying to think of obscure ones because I'm an asshole like that. Maeve with the bird, with the finch on her finger. That seemed really fucking cool.
It's like the
Maeve,
sexiest
the mother.
Disney princess I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was uncalled for, okay? I'm not going to let you say stuff like that. I'm going to keep making my dick jokes, but you don't say shit like that, okay? And, I do think, funny ass part where Felix is like wondering if he's a host too, and Dolores has to tell him he's not a host. And Anthony Hopkins' time with Wild Bill Hickok. That's a little underrated, I think. I think that scene doesn't get enough attention. This is him. This is another first generation host, And what's interesting is Dolores used to be just like Wild Bill, right? At some point, they were kind of the same in machinations. And the way you really see the dehumanization of these by when he's done talking with him, he basically makes him go and get back in his body bag.
Yeah.
I thought that was really morose,
Yeah.
morbid, or whatever.
Well, they kind of show the earliest model of Dolores in the first couple of moments in the finale episode, where it's like Bernard just putting on the bare minimum of the flesh, and you hear more of the robotic sounds of like when she sits up and like turns around and like puts out her hand of like, well, when he's like, welcome to world, like you hear more of those, but now it's like she's more swift movements and like compared to Wild Bill. For me, some of the best parts of season 1 is the cinematography and the set, the storytelling, and how it's something that I don't think before this I've ever really invested a lot of time into watching something like this. Like there's probably was something when I was a bit younger that was kind of like this, but never went into the, like, we've all had futuristic TV, but never to the fact of this is very much likely going to happen in the future. Like the Jetsons, yeah, it's way far out there, but like other things like this, where this presents a literal and potentially immediate next step into the future, as well as the fact it's presented in such a way where, when, like what Johnny said, with the people interacting, like the guests that show up, like the little boy asking her, "Are you real?" when she's painting by the lake. Not many people we have guest interactions with the hosts that ask them if they're a real person or not. They're just assumed that they're not a real person. And because we don't get a lot of the not everyday people, but the human people that we interact with the show are mainstay plot characters. Well, it's not like, oh, gotta.
It's a child's mind, a child's mind is simple but yet very deep, and it's that deep question of what is real. They don't think like us.
And it's her reaction of like, what do you mean by that question, is the subtle acting, and that is quite interesting, as well as how the talented flies that are in this show,
they freeze them and then they unfreeze them, and that's how they do that.
No, those flies are carrying around nanobot code on their legs, and when they drop, that's how Ford can communicate throughout the park through the cradle. He actually enters these flies, and he invades them.
He enters the flies
and molests them spiritually.
And molest them.
He gets all up in them flies, and he buzzes around, and he crawls into orifices, and he plants.
We are all
nanobot.
Stupider for listening to what you just said, Johnny.
Yeah. Well,
Here's to the lady in the white shoes. She'll steal all your money. She'll drink all your booze. She ain't got the cherry that box came in, but that ain't no sin because she's got the box that the cherry came in. Yeah, take that for what you want. That's the original to the ladies in the white shoes. It's very dirty. If somebody stood up at a wedding and said that, I've DJ'd a lot of weddings, they would be asked to leave. She ain't got the cherry, but still got the box.
She's probably he'll probably get arrested. He'll get banned from Twitter. He'll definitely get banned from Twitter, man.
Well, who's not going to get banned from Twitter? So, no. Yeah. I can't wait for season 3, though. Can't wait. It's looking like it's going to be a real banner.
Well, speaking of season 3, let's talk about it. So, what you guys doing for season 3 of Westworld? I know it's going to be interesting. So, what you doing?
We got Before the Dust Settles with myself, Hax Dogma, and our special behavioral tech for every episode, Johnny B. Crazy, that'll be interacting with the chat, of course, interacting with the conversation as well, but he's going to be our technical advisor right there and giving us all the specs, giving us the lowdown, and being the conduit for you guys, the medium for the message. And for the first episode, we have Gray Area as our special guest, which I'm very excited to say. I've known Gray since pretty much since she first started her channel, and she is one of the best content creators out there. So she is going to be giving her opinions on Westworld. She's a fan of the show, and I'm very excited that she's choosing our show to christen that Westworld battle on. And yeah, we'll be doing that. And Mackenzie will be the special guest. I believe, is it episode 5? We got the list. It's out there.
April 5th episode, I think. Whichever one that is.
That's got to be 4. So yeah, and then yeah, we got a bunch of great guests. So check it out, and it's on directly after the show. You got Hex Dogma, like I said, the very well-spoken Hex Dogma, and then myself, Johnny Be Crazy, for every single episode, and then a special guest for every episode as well. So I cannot wait. Also on Sunday before the show, I'll be on Robert Indie Geeks this for the premiere episode on his pre-show. So I think you'll have that posted soon. But myself and Hex, I believe, will be the guests for the pre-show for the premiere at least. So that sounds like a good time, because I know it's a good time because I did a bunch of them last season. So we got you covered before, after, in between. Bam.
I'll get to show off and showcase my knowledge of tumbleweeds, solo cups, and kegged beer. I think that's going to be the best thing that I can add to this. I used a cell phone one time, and I do like a thing this newfangled thing called the wheel. So I think I'm going to be able to bring a lot of information. No, we're going to have fun over at House of the Conqueror. Yes, I will be on with Justin before the dust settles. Technically making people behave, so we'll see what happens there. I promise I'll be a little better, Justin. I'll just do my job. And I'm gonna be coming out with some videos, a little more. They're gonna be different, but you'll see. I'll just keep you surprised with that. Ragnarok is in the works, script done, audio done. I'm in the middle of editing the video, and it's gonna be a nice 30-minute video coming out, so be on the lookout for that. But I'm super excited for Westworld season 3. There might be even a little preview video coming out in the next couple of days, so be on the lookout for that. And I'll be on here with Mackenzie, and we'll just be talking about what is the nature of humanity, and we can see if we can find a door. Maybe not. I'm just kind of rooting for Caleb to kill Dolores at this point, so that's what I'm going for. Oh.
Maybe. You never know. That may be the big twist at the end. But
did M. Night Shyamalan guest right this season? Justin?
Maybe.
No. He said no.
Maybe. Anyway. Yes.
No, he did not.
That's a joke.
I'm joking. Yeah, I'm joking too. Sorry, it's my dry sense.
Yeah. But yes, so for Westworld, we're going to be going and doing them every Wednesday at around 8:30, like our usual time. And yeah, well, I kind of made it a hashtag Westworld Wednesday. No, so millennial of me. But yeah, we'll be going all of the episodes. I know Justin will be on for the first one, and then Pax will be on for week 2. Still finalizing everybody else. But yeah, it's just going to be talking about a nice new show to come back to, because, well, the last big franchise for HBO just ended. So let's high hopes for, or at least medium hopes for Westworld season 3. But yeah, we'll be here every Wednesday, and other than that, I got videos that are coming. I just got no time right now, but I'm working on it. I'm going to work on at least one that'll be coming soon. So other than that, we have Facebook where you'll know exactly who's coming on, when they're coming on, and Patreon if you're ever so inclined. Videos are always up on there if you ever want some more videos from me for now. So with that, thank you both for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to have conversations with you two, regardless of whatever the topic is today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What was Westworld?
It's almost as enjoyable as the alien abduction I had last week.
Oh, yeah. Also, Sasuke, I'm still working on it, but we'll figure it out very, very soon. But I'll let you know. Anyway, and yes, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. Make sure to come with questions for next week on Wednesday, because we'll be sure to take some of those as well. And we'll see you then.